I have outlived 4 doctors who told me what to eat, and I want to say that with the humor it deserves before I tell you the serious version of what I actually believe about the food that has sustained 106 years of a life that has included 2 world wars and the Depression, and 11 presidents and the burial of most of the people I have loved, and the continued and daily surprise of waking up each morning in a body that is still, against what any reasonable assessment of the odds would have predicted, doing what bodies are supposed to do. My name is Alberta. I am 106 years old, and I want to tell you about 5 foods that I have eaten across my entire adult life, with a consistency and a genuineness that has nothing to do with any nutritional program or any dietary philosophy, and everything to do with the specific and practical wisdom of a woman who grew up poor enough that the food available to her was the food that the earth produced and that the hands of her family prepared, and who has never entirely left that relationship with food regardless of what the subsequent decades made available. I want to say before I begin that I am not a doctor, and that I am not telling you that eating what I eat will produce what my life has produced, because I have enough honesty at 106 to know that the factors determining the length of a life are more numerous and more complicated than any list of foods can account for, and that the genetics I was given, and the luck I have had, and the specific combination of circumstances that has allowed me to be here at this age talking to you are not reducible to 5 items on a list. What I am telling you is what I have eaten with genuine consistency across a century of daily meals, offered as the honest testimony of a very old woman rather than as the prescription of an expert. I grew up in rural Georgia, born in 1919, the third of 9 children in a family that farmed the land with the specific and intimate relationship to food production that people who grow their own food have, and that people who buy their food in packages do not have in quite the same way. The relationship of someone who understands what the growing of something requires, and who therefore receives the eating of it with a quality of attention and a quality of respect that the distance from its production does not produce. The first food is beans. I have eaten beans in one form or another at least 4 days of every week of my adult life, and I want to tell you about this with the specificity it deserves, because beans in my life are not the fashionable legume of a contemporary dietary philosophy, but the specific and ordinary food of a woman who grew up eating them because they were available and inexpensive and filling, and who has continued eating them across 106 years because the body that grew up on them knows them and receives them well. My mother cooked dried beans that she soaked overnight and cooked slowly for most of the morning in the way that beans require to become what they are capable of being, soft and nourishing and genuinely satisfying in a way that the quickly prepared version does not quite achieve. I cook them the same way. I have cooked them the same way for 80 years, and my granddaughter, who helps me in the kitchen now, has learned the overnight soaking and the slow cooking, and I have told her that the slow cooking is not optional, and that the patience it requires is itself part of what the beans are teaching. The second food is leafy greens, which I have eaten in the form that the Southern Garden produces. Collard greens and turnip greens and mustard greens and the various other dark and bitter and thoroughly nourishing leaves that the women in my family have cooked since before I was born, and that I have cooked and eaten since I was old enough to stand at a stove. The greens of my childhood were cooked long and with a piece of smoked meat for flavor in the way that Southern cooking traditionally prepares them, and I understand that the long cooking diminishes certain nutritional qualities, and I also understand that the eating of them for a century has produced results that the analysis of their diminished nutritional qualities does not adequately account for, and I will continue cooking them the way my mother cooked them for as long as I am cooking. There is something in the eating of the food prepared the way the people who loved you prepared it that I believe has a dimension that the nutritional analysis does not capture, a dimension of continuity and of the specific comfort of a body that recognizes what it is receiving because it has been receiving it its entire life. I cannot prove this, and I am not trying to prove it. I am reporting it as the honest observation of a very old woman who has been paying attention to what she eats and what it produces for a very long time. The third food is sweet potatoes, which I eat several times a week and which I have eaten my entire life with the specific and uncomplicated pleasure of someone who genuinely loves what she is eating rather than eating it because she has been told it is good for her. The genuine loving of the food is something I want to say more about because I think it is more important than the specific food being loved, and I will say more about it at the end. Sweet potatoes were the food of my childhood in the specific way that certain foods become the food of a childhood, present with the frequency and the familiarity that makes them inseparable from the memory of the years in which they were eaten most consistently. We baked them in the oven when there was an oven, and we cooked them in the coals when there was not, and I have eaten them roasted and mashed and in pies and in the various forms that a century of a southern kitchen produces, and I have not tired of them in 106 years of the eating, and I find the not tiring of them across a century to be itself the evidence of something worth paying attention to. The fourth food is eggs, which I have eaten every morning of my adult life with the specific and reliable consistency of someone who has found the morning food that suits her body and who has not seen sufficient reason to change it regardless of what the nutritional advice of the various decades has said about them. The advice has changed significantly across my 106 years, has moved from the confident promotion of eggs to the confident warning against them and back toward the promotion again, and I have continued eating my morning egg across all of the changes in the advice with the equanimity of a woman who has outlived enough expert opinion to approach it with a healthy skepticism. I am not recommending that you ignore medical advice. I am reporting that I have eaten an egg every morning for 80 years and that I am 106 years old and that the egg has been a consistent and genuinely pleasurable part of every one of those mornings, and that the genuine pleasure of the eating is not a trivial consideration in the accounting of what the food has provided. The fifth food is water. I want to tell you about water as a food because I think it deserves to be named as such rather than as the background of the diet, the thing that is always mentioned as the obvious necessity, and then set aside for the more interesting discussion of the specific foods with the specific properties. I have drunk water my entire life as the primary liquid of my daily existence, not because I was following any particular guidance, but because I grew up in a household where water was what you drank and where the various alternatives were either unavailable or reserved for specific occasions, and the habit of water as the default liquid of daily life has continued across 106 years with the consistency of the earliest habits. I drink water in the morning before anything else, and I drink it throughout the day with the uncomplicated attention of someone who has always found it genuinely satisfying. And I want to say that the finding of it genuinely satisfying is itself the thing I most want to tell you about, because the woman who finds water genuinely satisfying is the woman who has maintained her relationship with the most basic requirements of the body as genuine rather than as the management of minimums while pursuing something more stimulating. I want to say the thing I promised to say about the genuine loving of the food, because I think it is the most important thing I have to offer and the most frequently absent from the conversations about food and health and longevity that I have observed across my very long life. The food that has sustained 106 years has been food that I have eaten with genuine pleasure and genuine attention. Not the mechanical consumption of things selected for their properties, but the actual and daily experience of someone who likes what she is eating and who brings to the eating of it the specific and present attention of someone who is genuinely receiving what she is being given. The eating that is genuinely pleasurable and genuinely attentive is different from the eating that is managed and strategic and organized around the optimization of a desired outcome. And the difference is not merely experiential, but has to do, I believe, with what the body does with what it receives when the receiving is genuine rather than strategic. I cannot prove this, and the doctors who have been interested in my case have offered me the various frameworks within which my observations might or might not be supported by the research they are familiar with, and I receive those frameworks with the respectful attention of someone who understands that the research and the 106 years of a single body are different kinds of evidence and that both deserve consideration. I am 106 years old. I had my breakfast this morning, which was the egg and the water and the cornbread that my granddaughter made in the pan that has been in this family for 70 years. And I received it with the specific and genuine pleasure of a woman who has been receiving her breakfast for over a century, and who has not yet found reason to receive it with anything less than the full and grateful attention it deserves. Eat the food that your body knows and that you genuinely love. Eat it slowly and with attention. Drink water as the primary liquid of your daily life. Cook things the way the people who loved you cooked them when you can, because the continuity has a dimension that the analysis does not capture and that the body recognizes even when the mind has moved on to other considerations. And receive what you are eating with genuine pleasure rather than strategic calculation, because the genuine receiving is the whole of the relationship with food that a long life requires. And the relationship with food is the relationship with the body. And the relationship with the body is the relationship with the life. And the life is what you are here to live. I have been living it for 106 years. The beans are soaking for tomorrow.